Hey there, we're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off, starting with this lab in exploring geospatial data. So in our last demonstration, we learned how to extract part of a data set. So we were given a data set. It included counties from states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Ohio. We isolated that spatial data and we turned it into a geodatabase. And we also did some renaming here. The only thing that we need to make sure that we do here is rename this map. So now we've got that labeled as Illinois. Remember also that we have this standalone database here that is associated with no spatial data whatsoever, and that is this obesity database. So let's go ahead and in previous versions, sometimes this is called the project pane. And in more recent versions of ArcGIS Pro, they call this the contents pane. So it sort of flips back and forth. It rather doesn't flip back and forth. It goes from projects pane to contents pane. All right, so come down here to this data and we're going to go ahead and right click on it. And we want to open it up because we want to take a look at it. Now, if you notice when you right clicked on it, it doesn't say open attribute table because what it's telling you right here already is that this is just a table. That's all that it is. Okay, so we've opened this up. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of data regarding these counties nonetheless. The only thing is not associated in any sort of spatial demonstration at all. Now, in this part of this lab, what we're doing is we're trying to join data tables. So we've got tables, they're composed of rows and columns, and columns are often called fields. And the column headers are going to tell you what kind of information is provided for each feature represented in a row. For in this case, the features in Illinois are counties, and the fields include like object identifiers or some sort of ArcGIS table, state, or some sort of county. And obviously, we're looking at everything inside of Illinois. A FIPS code is a Federal Information Processing Code or standard code, and every U.S. county has this. And right now, we are looking at obesity statistic fields. For example, if we scroll over here to number 4, we have %4, number 5, %5. We've got number 4 right here, and it shows us the number of people who are considered obese in the year 2004. So the nice part about this data table is it includes the amount of people and then the percentage, which is always nice, so that we can accurately represent some of this data. So we've got 2004 all the way. Let's scroll and see how far this data goes. So it looks like all the way to 2010. All right, that's pretty cool. All right, now what we're going to be attempting to do is join a spatial table with a non-spatial table. Don't worry about it. Not everything needs to be exact in order for these two to jive. They just need to have one field in common. That field doesn't even have to have the same name. It just needs to have the same sorts of values. So in this case, the common field that it has in common are the FIPS codes. Remember, FIPS codes is a federal code that every county has, and it stands for Federal Information Processing. The standard part, the S in the FIPS, I find a little problematic. So you'll notice that I don't say it a whole lot. It's Federal Information Processing Code, and it's for every U.S. county has one of them. So we'll notice here that there's a FIPS code in our obesity prevalence. So here we go. All these counties have their own FIPS code. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that if we open up the attribute table for Illinois County, yes, these are shape files. Here's the name of the county. Here's this. See, this is a state FIPS code, but then we've got county FIPS code. So you'll notice that the FIPS codes are not associated because the last file, um, the fields, or excuse me, these columns were associated alphabetically. And that's why the FIPS codes started with different numbers. But you'll notice that we've got FIPS codes here nonetheless. So now that we know that we have two fields that are similar and hold similar values, they could have had a different name. They could have written it differently. Doesn't matter. The information is still the same. You'll notice that since we have two tables open, you're able to really switch in between both now, which is really nice. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to join them. Let's go ahead and close out both these tables. We've taken a look and we can see that they're all going to join up just fine. So in the contents pane, or in your version, it might say projects, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we're clicking on Illinois County. And then we're going to come over to the data tab and we're going to click join, add join. The input table we already know is Illinois County because we have that highlighted. The input join field we want to make sure is the FIPS code. That's the one that we determined was the same. And the table that we're joining is obesity prevalence. Gosh, it's really nice that ArcGIS Pro knows which one. They also realize that it's the only one we have open at the time. So, and then let's go ahead. Let's double check. What do we want the join field name to be? Well, I think FIPS code is going to be fine. After all, it already has that name. So if we join the two fields, FIPS code really makes sense. Now you'll notice there's going to be this little warning code. Go ahead and ignore that. It's fine. So let's go ahead and click OK. All right, cool. All right. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and open this back up again. All right, here we go. We're going to scroll. Let's take a look at it. So we knew that we had a lot of demographic information, but now you'll notice that all of these are also associated with the additional standalone table. So now we've joined them. The nice part here is that although this data table was given to us, it didn't have any spatial data associated with it, any spatial foundation. We joined it with ours that does, which is really nice. Let's make sure that these FIPS codes match up. So we're looking at Jasper County in this top column and Jasper County in the top column. So now we've got polygons that are associated with, if we scroll all the way down, if we use that explore feature to go ahead and look at some information, we'll notice that we've got demographic information and now we also have the obesity prevalence. So remember that number 04 was the amount of people in the county that were obese, and here's the percentage of the people. So now this information is really being brought to visualization in these tools. All right, now that we've double checked that, I think one of the most important things is now that we have this data, what are we going to do with it? So we've brought it over, we've joined it successfully. Now we want to make sure that we visualize this appropriately and accurately. So now we're going to apply informative symbols. So on the Appearance tab, now remember you can find symbology in lots of ways. You can go on the Appearance and click Symbology, or you can go to the layer itself and right click and click Symbology. So like I said before, many roads lead to Rome. What we're going to do here is we are going to scroll to Graduated Colors. And then automatically that's going to kind of do our job for us. It's associating however graduated with the FIPS codes according to numbers. And I'm not going to lie, I don't think any of you or really anyone's going to find that interesting unless you're working in some sort of urban planning that has to do with the state of Illinois. All right, so in the symbology drop down list, what we're going to do now is the field that's currently open is the FIPS code, which we said we really don't want. Now, remember, if you want to make this a little bit bigger, we can. Now, what do you think we're going to be interested in looking at since we worked really hard to join that database, that singular database on its own? We want to look at the number of obese people from 2004. Okay, so now we're seeing that this data is being visually represented in a much different way. And if you want to change the classes, so the lab that we're currently looking at is asking us to change the classes. ArcGIS Pro by default is going to choose 5 categories based on natural breaks in a particular classification method, but it depends on how you want to communicate your data. You can go ahead and change that. So in the symbology pane, let's go ahead and change those classes to 4. All right, so and that self-adjusts already. And then we're going to come down here. Instead of the blue, we're going to change this color ramp to the yellow red. All right, how are we thinking this looks? Then under classes, click on the last row's upper value right here. And so what you're going to do now is you're going to replace some of these numbers here. So we've got classes, we've got bar for a tab for histogram, and we've got it for scales here as well. And it's got a natural breaks for Jenks right here. Let me go ahead and make sure that that's exactly how we want it to be. We do. Yeah, the only thing now is that we are going to adjust this instead of number. We're going to change it to %. All right. I've got to admit that looks a little bit more visually interesting and represents that data pretty well. Except down here, we can go ahead and if you click on it, you can go ahead and adjust those. So we're going to change that to 35%. And then let's see how that changes. And then we're going to go ahead and adjust these working from the bottom, enter the following values. So you want to make sure that the remaining in here are going to be 31. And we're going to have 27. And 23. All right, now the other thing we can do is we can change how these labels are going to show themselves in the legend. For example, so when we do the work here, it's going to help us later on when we're going to try to visualize and create this in a layout. So we come into here and we're going to change these numbers as well and edit these category labels. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Obviously, this one is going to represent 23% or less. And your next one is going to represent 23.1% to 27. Your next will be 27.1% to 31%. And your last one will be 31.1% to 35%. And so when you create your legend, you're going to go ahead and notice those differences on there as well. Now, I'm not sure if you guys noticed that while we were creating those different class breaks here, our map changed significantly. So now we're looking at most of the counties since we've adjusted this data. Gosh, the communication level has really adjusted. The higher thresholds are required to accommodate for higher percentages in subsequent years. So if we were just showing this year 2004, I can honestly tell you that I wouldn't be going with these sort of percentage for classification. But the reason why we're doing this is because we're actually going to be adding subsequent years from 2004, I believe, wasn't it, all the way to 2010. So now we're going to continue and we're going to start importing some layer symbology here. So in the contents pane, which is also the project pane, we're going to go ahead and highlight the Illinois County, and we're going to right click and we're going to copy it. And then we are going to come up to the Illinois map, and we're going to click paste. What you're going to notice now is that you have two of the same happening here. The only difference now is that what you're going to go ahead and do is start working into these examples and adding all of the different years. So you're going to keep these layers straight, and you're going to rename the first one 2004 instead of percent 2004. Okay. And then the second one, we're going to take a look up, and we're going to keep that on the top of the list. And we're going to change that one to 2005. So yeah, I know I'm not sure if we're a little married here to Illinois County, but it's got to go bye-bye. So we're going to rename it. Remember, if you rename something, you can always change it back if you're sad to see it go away. And we're going to change this to 2005. It's not 2005 yet, but it is going to be shortly. All right, so we've clicked on this. We're coming over to symbology. Yes, we want graduated colors. And for this, we're changing it to percent 2005. And yes, I like how that visualizes out a little bit better. So now you've noticed that we can turn this one off, turn it on. Now we're creating visualized layers. We go in and you can go ahead and adjust these within that symbology. This went bye-bye. There we go. It's back. Now we can go ahead and adjust these as well to match up with how we want them to be visualized here. The nice part is we've already created the 4 classifications. The numbers got a little funny, so we go ahead and we're going to redo those, and then we're going to adjust for the percentages as well. Now, what you're going to find yourself doing is you're going to do that same process. You're going to highlight that field, either 2004 or 2005. You're going to copy it. Then you're going to come back up to Illinois, and then you're going to right click and you're going to paste. You're going to rename each layer, go to the symbology, and then add in percent all the way until 2010. The important part now is that with 2005, what we're going to do is we're going to import some symbology. So go to the symbology pane, and we're going to click the options button here. Went bye-bye again. There we go. Come over here, import symbology. It's going to open up what we're looking at right now is a geoprocessing pane. And we're going to go ahead and keep 2005 as this input layer. And for the symbology layer, we're going to click 2004. And make sure that we've got our value field is going to be the same. We want to make sure that it's obesity prevalence percent 04. And then we're going to change the target field to obesity percent 5. And we want to maintain the same ranges that we did. And then we're going to run that. All right. So now what we've just done is we have ensured. Now you'll notice that if you didn't want to fill in all of those things for each of these classifications, you've imported what we did here for 04 and just basically done the same thing for 05. Now what you're going to do is go ahead and do this for 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then what we can do now is that we're going to turn off all of the obesity layers except for 2004, and one by one turn each one on. And the visual impact that you're going to notice once you've got all of these maps that you can view is going to be significant. And you're going to understand why in 2004 we have a classification system that looks like this. 2005, we're looking at significant changes, and just wait till you get to 2010. You're going to notice a quite marked difference. It's pretty unbelievable. So what you're going to go ahead and do at the end of this is you are going to screenshot each one of these and your end product. So 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And upload all of these onto the lab. And also, your other deliverable will also be to share this entire project with our GIS 202. All right, hope you guys had fun with this one.